Hey guys, it's Tracy. Welcome to Country Charm by Tracy. I'm so glad that you're here. Now today, guys, I'm going to be doing some craft projects using some of those products from TEMU. A couple of weeks ago, I had done an unboxing. I had shared some of the things that they had sent to me. It was kind of at random. And so today I'm going to be doing some of those, putting some craft projects together for you. As always, what I'm using is going to be linked in the description box below, so it's very easy for you to find. And yes, I am excited to be doing this and working with TEMU. They have a variety of different products, you know, craft supplies, they have home decor, they have all kind of different things that you can beautify your home, or if you want to make a project, if you want to look stylish, they have tons and tons of different things. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started and let me show you what I have created for you today. First up is making a spring summer decor piece using these beautiful flowers as well as this hanging greenery. Now this container is one that I've had on hand. I got it from Hobby Lobby as well as the styrofoam. I picked that up at the Dollar Tree. I'm also going to be using some of this fine Excelsior just to add to my container for a bit of whimsy. All right, so for the styrofoam blocks, I am just taking those, and they're actually in little squares like this. I'm sure that TEMU also has styrofoam and also little containers, but just kind of highlighting and showing you what I did with this to make this arrangement. So I cut down some of the blocks just so that they all fit in there, and that works really good. And so then I just take that fine Excelsior. I picked this up at Hobby Lobby as well, and I just pulled pieces of that and just kind of just stuck it there. And once I put the floral in there, it all kind of, you know, I don't have to glue it because it all just kind of sticks there in that styrofoam. All right, so this greenery hanging bush is also one of the items that TEMU sent to me, and it has little white little flowers on the end of it, or little white accents. And so I just cut off pieces of it and just you know, stuck it into the styrofoam, getting it the look that I wanted for this little hanging container. And then I'll start with the yellow roses, very, very well put together roses, and I'm gonna be sticking that whole yellow in there, and then I cut apart some of the white and stuck those in there as well. Okay, I'm using some of these 4x4 wood little plaques. Kind of look like coasters, kind of look like, you know, little things like that. And pulled out 4 of them, but I'm only going to use 2. All right, so I give them a coat of cashew color chalk paint. Then I'm going to do the crackle technique just using the school glue. And if you're not familiar with that, you paint your project, and then whatever you want it to come through the cracks, you want that to be the base coat. And so I just have some school glue that, you know, I just had on hand, and I give it a very generous portion of the school glue. And while that is still wet, I'm going to pull out some plaster color chalk paint as well, and then I'm going to go over it. Now this foam brush was just a little bit too big. I should have got a smaller one as well, but what I find is that you need to have the school glue be wet and then put the top coat on you know, and then the bottom coat. So that cashew color will be peeping through. And so then while that is all still wet, the glue, the paint, everything, I'm just taking my heat gun or my heat tool and just, you know, going over it. And you can really see right before your eyes that those cracks are forming. How cool is that? Okay, then once those are dry, I'm pulling out these stencils. Now these are in a set. They come 16 in a pack like this. They're little plastic stencils, and I am very impressed with these. I'm really excited to be using these. They have a bee theme. Those are the ones that they sent to me. So I'm going to be using the hive as well as some of the honeycomb and a few of the bees. And I'm going to be stenciling on some paint onto those little plaques and just making some little shelf sitters for my 3-tier tray. Now, how I do that is I'm using a makeup sponge that I just get at the Dollar Tree, you know, a pack of those, and then I just use those to pounce or spounce my paint onto the stencil. And so what I'm going to do is do that with the hive, and the yellow paint color that I'm using is called Curry. That is a Waverly chalk paint as well. And then I'll do some the same way with the honeycomb. A couple of these stencils have the honeycomb on them, and so I just figured out which designs I wanted, and I just used that little makeup sponge and just pounce that on there just like that. I also find that these stencils are pretty easy to clean. I just take a baby wipe and just, you know, wipe off the paint while it's still wet so that, you know, it doesn't dry or anything like that. I don't know. This is my first project to do for these, but I've used those two and that works really good. All right. So then also figure out which other ones I wanted to make the bee. So I figured out which one. And so then I was a little let's see, I guess I was trying to decide, do I need to paint the body? You know, do I need to do this, do that? So I just took one of those little paint brushes that TEMU also sent me in my mystery box. And so I just painted like the black part of the bee. So then I'll go back with one of those sponges and add, well, that's what I was thinking. I would go back and add the yellow on top, but that didn't work out too good. So what I did was just use one of those small brushes that TEMU sent to me, and I just kind of cleaned up my bee the way that I needed it to. Also added the little zip, what do you call that little, you know, where it like has the little dashes where, you know, it looks like a little bee is buzzing around. And so I used those small brushes for that, cleaned up any of the others that I didn't like. And then I just used that small brush just to add the stripes of the bee. And that works better actually than using this stencil, because I got a little heavy on the paint and it kind of bled a little bit, and I did not like that. All right, so then for the opening of the hive, I just added a little bit of antiquing just in the inner part of the, I didn't cover it solid, I just kind of wanted to give it a highlight. I also go on the hive and just add a little bit of just distressing, or just a little definition, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And so then I do the same thing around the bee, and then I'm like, something looks odd. Well, it needs some wings. Silly. So I'll go back and do that in just a second. But first, I pulled out my Distress ink in Vintage Photo and my finger dauber and just go around just to give it the brown distressing that I like for my projects. And then here now, that's when I'm like, oh, that's what you need, silly. You need the wings. And so I just pulled out that stencil and just used that Distress ink just to dab on some wings for my bee. And then here is another one of the stencils that I used for the bee. Now I was having a little bit of a hard time just because the stencil was opaque, and as well as my background, I was kind of having a hard time seeing. And then maybe the lighting in my craft room when I was doing this. But those small paint brushes that TEMU sent to me does very well. I could go ahead and clean up everything as far as fill in and, you know, just fill in on the black part and just kind of go around where it looks like the form of the bee. And then also what I do is I just use another one of those small brushes and just added the yellow part of the bee and just filled all of that in. I did the same thing with the larger bee with its wings. I just took my distress ink and vintage photo and the finger dauber and just went around and just gave it the, you know, brown, just for that so that the wings would have some definition. Then I thought of something else. I have TEMU also sent me this silicone mold. It is butterflies, and I was thinking maybe one of the butterfly I could cut it in half and make it some opaque wings, and so that's what I did. What I did is I just took some hot glue and just filled that one butterfly, you know, one little section of the silicone mold and let that dry. It only takes just, you know, a few minutes. And then I cut it in half, and then I'm going to glue that to my board just to make it three-dimensional and make it look like it has dimensional and opaque wings. And I just love how that all looks together like that. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the larger bee. I'll do that as well. And so then I just take one of those paintbrushes in the TEMU pack, also just to add a highlight of white in a lot of the like honeycomb as well as on the bee. Now I'm just taking one of my black markers and just going and just giving some doodles and definition, you know, just to outline it because I like that look. Okay, I'm going to add some letters, and I'm going to be spelling out bee, buzz, and honey. So I'm taking the alphabet, the uppercase silicone mold that the TEMU sent to me, and also adding some hot glue in the letters. And I make sure that I fill the letter up all the way. It took a little bit of trial and error just to figure out how much glue I needed to put in there and how long I needed it to set. And so then once that's dry, then I just cut off any of the extra little parts if it was, you know, like hanging off. And so then using some of those paint brushes that came from TEMU as well and the curry color of yellow, this is just what I had on hand, so that's what I'm using. I'm using a few of those little paint brushes that TEMU sent to me and just my tweezers just so that, you know, I could get a handle on them, and just painting the letters. I gave it probably about 2 or 3 coats so that they all, you know, looked very good, and that didn't take long at all. And so then I have buzz, bee, and honey is going to go on my next project. So then what I do is I'm just going to glue those down, and as first I was going to hot glue them. I'm like, no, I'm going to pull out my B7000 glue, and that is also from TEMU, and so it's just like E6000, but I like this one because it has a small precision tip on it, and so like the top just kind of slips right back in there, and you can you know, close it up, and so I like that. So I just, you know, use that to glue on my letters here to these small little boards that are going to be shelf sitters. So then I thought that they got a little lost. I wanted them to pop a bit more, so I just took my stylus and some off-white paint and just giving the letters some polka dots just to make them pop and buzz and be beautiful. To make them small shelf sitters to stand up on my tier tray, what I'm using are just some tumbling tower blocks that I had on hand, and I actually use 3 tumbling tower blocks per little sign, and I started out with 2 and I'm like, oh nope, I'm going to need another one. So that's what I did, and I just attached them with the B7000 glue, combination of that as well as hot glue, just to get it to stand up. And I did that on both of those. Then I'm going to make a small shoelace bow, just 2 loops on each side, and I only had this much ribbon. I wanted to use it because I wanted all to tie in with the bee projects that I was doing today. And when I made this first bow, I actually should have shortened the tail just a little bit because when I made the second bow, I didn't quite have as much, and I needed to make just like a bow tie, not even an actual bow. So anyway, it is what it is. So I just fiddled around with it to get the look that I wanted, and just glued it there on the top. And I wanted to do that with both of them, but then I ended up not having enough ribbon to make the loops. So what I did is just make a knot in the middle, and I'm just using my lighter just to singe the edges because this is grosgrain ribbon and it will fray. So I just use my lighter just to singe the edges. And I'm like, why did you put it down there, Trace? You wanted to put it at the top. So I quickly took it off, cut it down just a little bit more, and added it to the top corner, and like that much better. I'm going to make a honey hive, and I'm using a brown paper bag, just a lunch bag. I got a pack of these from the grocery store, but you can get them anywhere, like brown bags and stuff are sold. So what I did is I opened it up and then I scrunched it up so that it would be very, wrinkly. The more wrinkles, the more, places that I could bend and scrunch it, the better. And so I just took my glue gun and just kind of up at the top, I just, because I wanted it to be larger at the bottom and then just more narrow at the top. And then I just grabbed a brush, and I'm going to just add some yellow paint, some of that yellow curry paint that I've been using throughout this whole video. I'm just using that. And these small brushes came from the Dollar Tree. And so I just pouncing that on there all the way around. And then when I get to a certain point, I let that dry. Then I'm going to start working on my board. And so I just went in my craft stash just to see different things that I had. And I found this, looks like a cutting board that I had. I love the stripes in it. I wish the stripes would have been going horizontal instead of vertical, just because the way that, I was going to make this hive. But I loved it. I love the brown and the, natural colors of it. But what I did is I'm going to add a little bit of antiquing to it. So I just have some antique wax that I got from Walmart, and just with another one of those brushes, just kind of dry brushing it just to give it a little bit of interest as I go around. Then I'll just use a baby wipe just to spread it around a bit more. Then to add a little bit more interest, I will take another brush and some plaster color chalk paint and just do a dry brushing, just to give it a different look and effect. Now I'm going to start assembling my hive, and I just glue it there at the bottom. Then I just start gluing it, tucking it, and, you know, just kind of tacking it where I want it. I want it to be large at the bottom and then, you know, more cone shape at the top. So I'll just continue to play around with that until I get the look that I am going for. And then I want to paint an opening. So I just take some black paint and, you know, another brush and just kind of stipple that on just to give it just some, you know, where the opening of the hive is. Then I'll take some of that Distress ink in Vintage Photo. This is my go-to ink, guys. It really is. And I just take just that finger dauber and just go and just kind of give it just some brown so that it looks a little distressed. And then I'm just taking some hot glue and just gluing it where it looks like maybe some honey has come out of the hive. I didn't have any yellow glue sticks. I would have done that, but then I don't know. I kind of, once the hot glue dries, it gives it an opaque color just like that. And so I like that look. So, I mean, everyone is a little bit different on how they like their glue to look once they or put it on their little hive or on their little sticks. Or dippers. I think that that's what those are called, honey dippers. All right, so then for my honey banner, I wanted something that had a background. So I have this craft colored cardstock that I had on hand. And so I'm just tearing it into kind of like a curved banner. And then once I get, you know, enough torn off the way that I want it, then what I'll do is I will crumple it up just to give it, you know, that folded look. Then I will distress it with my Vintage Photo distressing ink, and then I will glue down my letters. Now these honey letters, I'll just remind you really quick, I had used that silicone mold, those uppercase silicone mold that TEMU sent to me. I just, you know, put hot glue in them, just spelled out the word honey. Then I gave them about 3 coats, maybe 2 to 3 coats of that curry color yellow paint. And then now I'm just gluing those onto the banner to spell out the word honey. And then once I get all of those on right there, what I do is I start with the middle letter and then I work at the, you know, from the middle on out, so that way I get my letters evenly spaced. And so then I'm just using a black paint marker just to add a bit of doodling and squiggles, what I like to do. Now, to add some interest to the back of this, I wanted to use this beautiful ribbon from TEMU. It is called Velvet Webbing, and so I love it. It's just so pretty, and I wanted to use it. At first I thought about using twine to wrap it around, but I said, oh no, I want to use some of that ribbon. So I wrapped it around several times, I think about 4 different times, just to give interest around the top of my sign. And so then what I'll do is I will glue on the honey banner to the top, but I want to lift it up a little bit, and I like to use what is it called, Silly Winks. It's kind of like fun foam. It's thicker. I can get it from Hobby Lobby. I just glue a strip of that to the back of the banner, and then that will lift up my sign on anything that I'm doing. And so then of course I got to do it. I got to add some black and white paint splatters to my projects because I like that look, and that's what I like to do for my projects. All right, so then now I'm going to make a bow, and so I'm just using my little black zip tie just to get that, you know, really tight in the middle, and then I'm going to use just a piece of that ribbon just to wrap it around the middle just to give it a finished look, and then I'll just glue that to the top of the sign. But before I do that, I want to add some fine Excelsior. I love using Excelsior, and I found this Excelsior from Hobby Lobby, and so I just glued a little bit of that to the top of this sign, and it is so pretty. Before I finish, I want to go ahead and add just a little bit of white to the black hole just to give it a little bit of interest. Again, if you are interested in any of the TEMU products that I used in some of today's projects, you can find those easily in the description box below. There will be a link that takes you directly to my actual shopping list kind of thing, as well as a special code for 30% off for new users, and that is on top of the already low prices that TEMU offers. Thank you so much to TEMU for sending me these DIY craft projects in the mystery box. I had a lot of fun putting these projects together. Thank you so much for watching. We will talk to you all in the next video. Have a wonderful and blessed day.